morning. Now, I would like to welcome you all to this traditionalized 10th SteelOrbis conference. As a matter of fact, when we first started this conference, we had question marks in our minds whether it would be supported by the industry, but I do see that we have a sound infrastructure and background now for organizing a series of events where Turkey has got into the tradition of putting on table steel-related matters at length. It is extremely pleasing for all of us to have you here. As a matter of fact, the fact that this platform has found an enrooted position in the sector is an indicator of the fact that the steel industry is getting, as always, to be a significant sector in economy. I would like to thank all SteelOrbis employees who have made this event possible and who have made the event with success, of course. You would appreciate that we are about to close a challenging year. The Turkish steel industry has shown a tremendous performance throughout 2000s. Actually, even in a period of regression for GNP, there was a growth performance in 2011. Only in 2009, because the global economic downturn, there was a negative perspective. But unfortunately, in the last 3 years, despite of the growth in the GDP, despite of the growth in the GDP, steel industry had a reverse reaction. Actually, although the GDP grew by 200, 300%, and finally in the first 10 months of 2015, GDP grew, but there was around 7% regression for the steel industry. Now you can see this regression as per the ratios in this slide. You will see that, roughly speaking, about 15-17% of the growth finally, particularly after 2012, actually after the position of the fastest growing steel industry in the world, we regressed to this position, unfortunately. In terms of capacity utilization, we do see that there has been a decline from around 80% to 60%. And for slab capacity and production, the situation is very blunt, because in the past, Erdemir was the only producer. Therefore, there was almost 100%, even beyond that, a technical capacity utilization. But finally, in 2015, it regressed down to 44%, which is not sustainable, I'm afraid. We'll have to reconsider this situation. Now, given all these factors, all the steel industry, sub-industries and subgroups do have a parallel progression with the raw material industry, but in terms of the finished steel production, there might be some deviations. Depending on our imports and exports of the pure steel, there might be increases and decreases for the finished steel production. The fact that this year we've imported the raw material and the steel, despite of the 7% of decline in steel production, because of an increase in the imports, there is about a 3% increase in finished steel production, which in total makes 10%. Actually, this is because of the increase in the slab ratio as well. Now, the consumption performance of Turkey has been quite stable. I mean, regardless of the exceptional 2 years. And in the current year, we can speak about a 12.4% of steel consumption, which is expected to grow further in the coming period, together with the establishment of the new government projects, which seem to be in vague now will become more definite in the coming years. Although we're expecting a moderate level of growth, the growth is expected to sustain in the coming years, which hopefully will have a positive impact over the steel industry. Turkey is a steel importer, and this slide shows us this position of Turkey is strengthened. Now, in 2011, we had almost 4 million or 3.5 million tons of semi-finished steel, and actually this year only 300,000 of imports plus 6 million tons of semi-finished steel trade went on. And if the trend of the recent months will continue, this might go up to 9 millions by the end of the year, which means that the steel capacity in Turkey remains quite idle, and the capacities that we're importing from are being utilized. This is what I can just make an interpretation out of this slide. This is quite an interesting table because, as you know, Turkey has been spoken about a big scrap deficit. Actually, we didn't comment a lot about these views, and we've just tried to explain the situation to the ministry as well. And then we've published a report, and then we've just tried to make this position clear. Although Turkey has been importing scraps, actually it is a big success that Turkey can process and sell these products, because if, I mean, this would create an added value, employment, and that you're also contributing to the production capacity. Actually, this is how the situation is, because we have been importing up to 22.4 million, which just regressed down to 19.7, 19.1, and 14.7, and respectively, finally this year, 12 million tons of import. Actually, this import of the scrap will have an implication over the semis with an increase. Therefore, unless we do import and make a production, we'll have to import the semi-products. Therefore, at this level of the added value, this will be left outside the country. This was what we were just discussing in the past, and this is what we have been going through, and hopefully the situation will change in the future. The total steel trade is shown on this slide. In early 2000s, total steel imports was at the level of 10 million tons, which increased up to 20 million tons in 2012. Actually, this has created some confidence in the sector, and we do expect that by 2023 there will be 55 or 60 million tons of import targets. But in the meantime, I'm afraid our exports, as of this year, for instance, only remained at the level of 14 million tons. But the imports are just heading towards 19 million tons. So Turkey is considered as one of the biggest steel importers of the world. Actually, this can also be shown in the implications of the net total steel exports, because we now have in 2012 8.4 million tons of definite total steel exports, and actually we hopefully will have more than 2.5 million tons in the minus situation. Now, for the total steel trade, the situation is more or less the same, although the deficit is smaller, because we are importing semi-products as well, and this shows an advantage probably in this respect. Now, this is the total steel export to import ratio of Turkey. In this ratio, we'll have 152% of export to import ratio. Today we are at the level of 96.9. Probably we're expecting somewhere between 90-92% by the end of the year. All these facts have led to this table for the position number 7. But actually, the situation is like position number 8 for Turkey now. Just pay attention to the fact that these are the figures of 2014, and in 2015 we probably will have just a few digits lower position. On the contrary, our importer position has improved, all, where we moved from position number 9 to position number 7, which is disturbing for us. Although in 2010 it looks like we are number 8, but as of this year, we will be just reaching up to a high potential of imports. Therefore, when the figures of 2014 will be announced, we will be somewhere in the position of the fourth biggest importer of steel in the world, which is disturbing. Probably will be number 4 or number 5, probably number 4. Net steel exporters of the world. The situation looks more disadvantageous to us because we have moved from position number 5 down to position number 11 as of this year. As for our trade balance with the EU, the situation looks quite disadvantageous. 3.7, 3.67 million. I mean, these are the figures. This year we are expecting a 3.5 million tons of, actually this is in dollar value. So it will be somewhere like 3.5 billion US dollars. That will be against us. The biggest challenge is our steel imports from China, our foreign trade with China, because you would see that in the past years it was 500,000, 450,000 tons of steel imports. But in 2015, as of the 9 months of 2015, it has increased up to the level of 2 million. Actually, for 2015 forecasts, we were just expecting somewhere like 2 million tons of an import from China. But in August and September, import figures were just at the level of the total imports in the previous years, like 400,000, 500,000. Should this situation persist in the coming months, we would probably reach somewhere between, 2.5 to 3 million tons of imports from China. Now, in SteelOrbis conferences in the last 10 years, we've all discussed about matters on China. But the discussion was based on the fact that there is quite a strong position and structure of China. And if this position gets to be stronger, there would be probably bigger negative effects. China has always remained as a concern for all of us. In the last 1.5 to 2 years, this concern has turned into reality, which actually has been bothering the steel industries around the globe. Some of the countries' steel industries went bankrupt because of this structure. And the disturbing feature of that structure in China is that the mechanism is not evolving around a free market economy. Whatever the costs would be, they intend to export to international markets so as to sustain employment, because the establishments in China all are just providing employment to 40,000, 50,000 people. So most of them are public agencies, and they do have a big competition going on among themselves. And when the prices are around $400 in the market, they might easily quote $300. And our relations with Russia and Ukraine has always been in the fact that if these prices in Turkey are 400, their prices would be 380. They wouldn't get it to a lower position. But this is not the case for the Chinese. They sell it for somewhere $100 less. So they have a competition among themselves. They say we have to quote lower prices so that we can sell. This situation is now affecting the global steel markets, which are working based on some rules. Therefore, in the United States, Latin America, and in Canada, in the European Union, they are taking strict measures after the latest OECD Steel Committee. The biggest steel producers of the world have made a declaration, and next week there will be a similar event at the OECD. Probably there will be a declaration to follow, and this is mostly about the China's non-acceptance to the World Trade Organization as a free market country because of their attitude in the steel market, which is quite destructive actually for the markets. Probably we're going to expect this declaration from the OECD. As of the current position we're standing, I think it's better understood now how it would damage the position of the global trade. Probably there will be somewhere, some kind of impact on the markets. Now, when we have $400 of prices being quoted in the metal industry, they have impaired the situation when they quote somewhere like $300. But finally, there are some fixed costs for the producers as well, and the 3.5% ratios are not just applicable now, and the Chinese are just destructing the entire markets. Therefore, the public aids and the factors that are disturbing the free market have shown itself with the regression in the scrap prices as well. Therefore, China is considered as an actor that has been damaging the market. Now you can see this high level of sales, and as the monthly figures are under 50,000, finally in August and September, 450 to 466,000 tons have been the ultimate level of imports. This is not acceptable for any country. Being just silent for this actually will mean to leave the steel industry. We have to consider it from the perspective that this is not just based on the problems of the producers, based on ore or based on scrap, but at the same time, this I think will have an implication over the products of the other markets, and no country will, I think, leave the space for China entirely. And our colleagues from China, I think, will have to consider that this destructive trade is not true trade, because this is not an acceptable way of trading, because this has turned the world upside down, and this has to be corrected, absolutely and for sure. Therefore, in the decision-making mechanisms, we are now at the level of discussing things after we have perceived the gravity of the situation. Quite fast, we'll have a way to make a conclusion about our decisions in parallel with the rest of the world. I'm sure that Turkey will be in the position of taking decisions about that. And David Cameron, the Prime Minister of UK, just put during his visit to China number one agenda item as the position of China in the steel industry. Therefore, I think this is going to be a number one item in our agenda after the government is established. Therefore, as of the current position, in the last 3 months, we have experienced around a 15% decline in steel production, but still we have a 8.5% increase in the finished steel production. We are heading towards 38,000 tons, and if we can meet our own capacity, we don't need to make any imports. But unfortunately, 19 million tons of our consumption is being imported, albeit the plus 20 million tons of an additional capacity in Turkey. We have experienced a 10%, 11% decline in the crude steel production, 17% 10% of decline again in the exports, and 11% of increase in our imports. This is a sick position, I have to say. I mean, but we are taking baby steps, although we are just seeing this minor recovery. And for the first time in the recent months, there has been although small, but an increase in our production. And I am hopeful that the situation will recover in the coming months. But in the meantime, the foreign trade system will also have to be reconsidered in total and from all aspects in terms of the customs practices and processing aspects. This, I think, will be protecting the steel producers, and I think will contribute to the other sectors as well. We need to have a sound structure and a system as in other countries, and I think that the increase in consumption will have an implication over the production in the coming months, and hopefully we'll be starting off 2016 with this optimistic position, and we will reconvene in November 2016, and hopefully these expectations will have realized by that time. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Veysel Yayan, for this presentation. Really, we're just going through some times that have never been experienced before. Of course, the effect of China is also inevitable, especially on the second session. The representative from China, CISA, we also will have the chance to listen to them. And probably it's going to be an interesting one. Now we'll move with the questions. The first question for you. Now, China. You were mentioning about their membership to the World Trade Organization and that a free market economy, I mean, is China's potential acceptance as a free market economy. When this is the case, especially this protectionism, the protectionist measures, how they will be affected? Would you please focus on it? Now, China is not a member to the World Trade Organization by now. Therefore, any decision taken for China with regards protection measures are taken easily, and therefore the countries are much more flexible towards that. And if China becomes a member of the World Trade Organization and if assumes the responsibilities, but if on the contrary do not fulfill the liabilities for becoming liabilities arising from membership, I'm sure that some strict measures will be taken. I mean, because it's not possible. I mean, no country will let this happen. In the last 8 or 10 months, as you all know, we just observed whether it is something transient or not, temporary or not. But at the point in here, last week, European Commission announced a notice and said that it's actually something intolerable. Same for the UK, same for the US, for Latin America, and also for the Far East. Therefore, China just went to look at the other markets and try to stand on this. I mean, they have to understand it. I mean, becoming a member to the World Trade Organization, still acting accordingly, then there will be no more free trade in steel. And when this is the case, of course, this also will be affecting the other sectors as well. And I think we have to avoid this to happen. And so as to ensure this never happens, I believe the Chinese should understand it, and therefore they actually should not abuse it anymore. They have to consider the consumption of their own countries and just review their capacities once again. You know, while the consumption in China is reducing, there's even actually no slowing down in their capacity increase. Sometimes they are decommissioning some of the capacities, but 30 million tons, 20 million tons of capacity is already available at one side. So it is not possible for this to move on in that way. Any further question to Mr. Yayan from the hall? I guess no. I think either we all agree that's why people are not asking any question, or maybe I made quite a comprehensible talk, I suppose. Thank you very much.